Alright guys, how's it going? It's the Eastbayanglers, and today we're talking all about spinnerbaits. Today we're talking about spinnerbaits where it's related to bass fishing. Spinnerbaits can also catch a variety of other game fish, freshwater and saltwater, mostly freshwater, pike, muskie, and a lot of other fish will hit a spinnerbait. I have had lake trout and rainbow trout, Mackinaw, take spinnerbaits. So real interesting. All right, let's get straight to it. We're talking spinnerbaits, fishing spinnerbaits, how to, the different ways, but special, we're talking modifications, special modifications that I'm going to share with you today that are going to help you guys get into a lot more fish. So when you guys are fishing a spinnerbait, we'll talk really quick about, the ways to fish a spinnerbait that are extremely effective and why. So the first thing is, the colder the water, the slower you're going to want to retrieve your spinnerbait. Now, as the water temperature approaches 45, 40, 35, 30 degrees, you're really going to want to have the slowest gear ratio you can get your hands on, a 5-1, 1, a 6-1, 1, a 5-4, 1, a 5-6, 1. You're going to want something slow. Now, in the beginning, when you cast out in these cold conditions, extreme cold, you're just going to want to give your a real snap real quick with your rod tip. That's going to go ahead and get those blades turning, and then you're going to basically slow roll that spinnerbait, but so slow that it's painful. It's painful to fish it that slow. So a lot of times that's what's going to get that spinnerbait deeper, and that's what's going to allow it to bump into rocks, which makes noise. And, when you're fishing a spinnerbait, a lot of times the water clarity is not so great. So a lot of times these fish are, they're having a hard time locating some of the bait. You've got some flash, you're displacing water, and then the kicker is, if you've got rock, I do extremely well around rock, just letting it grind into that rock. And also, a lot of people like to fish in timber with spinnerbaits. I've done really well doing it myself, laydowns, timber, anything that's basically wood. You're going to go ahead and cast the spinnerbait in because it's weedless. And a lot of times you do what they call bump the stump. So you're going to allow that spinnerbait, like instead of bumping the rock like I like to do, you can bump the stump, which is basically bumping wood. And that's going to create this, unique sound. And a lot of times that's going to trigger a reaction bite right after that. So in general, I'm a real fan of spinnerbaits, and sometimes I like to use trailers. So don't forget when you're fishing them to play around with your trailer. So we're going to talk about one of the other ways that you guys need to fish a spinnerbait. So this is special because not everyone really talks about this. Yo-yoing, jigging a spinnerbait off the bottom. Now this is something that can only be accomplished by keeling your spinnerbait. And what keeling basically means is giving it some balance and allowing it to sink properly or better. So what a lot of people like to do, including myself, is we'll take like a pork, an actual pork, or a basically there's Zoom sells some chunks, and I'll just rig a chunk, a plastic chunk sometimes, or a pork one, and you center right in the center of it, you put that hook of that spinnerbait, and you're gonna jig it off the bottom. And you guys would be really surprised. It's shocking how effective that can be. and I like to do it summer months most of the time, but it works well in the fall. And on top of that, keep in mind that, so it's really effective, especially at night. So I don't know if you guys are into night fishing. Night fishing is getting more popular among fishermen, and it is, a bit more difficult in the beginning getting used to fishing at night. But if you do, this is exceptional at night because, it does, at a time when there's low light and these fish are having a tough time finding certain baits, this really is kind of pulsating, displacing water. It's got flash and, kind of making some noise out there at night. And it's highly effective. Another way we're going to talk about, fishing a spinnerbait is going to be burning it, right above the grass or right in the grass, burn it in the grass. I like to do that a lot. Stop and go is also good, burn it, stop, go, stop, go. And then also another way to fish it is to, really basically go ahead and, what's the word? Oh, yes. So you wake it. Basically, you're going to cast it out and right away, keep that rod tip really high and go ahead and just you're gonna like play around with your retrieves. You're going to want that spinnerbait to stay at the top of the water column and just be under the water, and that blade or the blades will actually create a wake in the water, which essentially it's really cool. You can see the fish come up and actually grab the spinnerbait, and it's very effective, especially in the late spawn, post spawn, late summer, and sometimes in the early fall. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the modifications now. The modifications are special because they took me, time to acquire. So one of the modifications you can make to a spinnerbait that's really good, and everybody knows about this, is you can add a trailer hook, a stinger hook on the back of your trailer. So if you have a trailer like a swim bait, you can attach a stinger or, a trailer hook in there. Really, that's great. But what people don't talk about as much, is actually, taking your spinnerbaits and essentially breaking them in. The more that you use a spinnerbait, a lot of times, in my opinion, I'm not saying catching fish, but if you can just get that spinnerbait to turn, it seems to, like, there's a break-in period actually on the spinnerbait, and it fishes a lot better. I think it has a lot to do with something about the way that maybe the wire starts to break in, or the actual blades themselves make some type of a different sound, because spinnerbaits make a really unique sound in the water. And a lot of people say, books and professionals, the people that write the books say that the spinnerbait really, when you throw it, these fish, when you throw it a lot, they get conditioned to it because it makes a particular sound that's so, I guess, unique. So keep that in mind, guys. Another thing that a lot of people don't tell you is, take the blades off and experiment. Go single blade. Go change to colored blades. Paint your blades red, white, chartreuse. those are going to help you. Those colors are going to help you catch more fish. A lot of times, you know, there's just like spinnerbaits that are out there and they just don't have the right colors. And you can also go ahead and buy pre-painted blades and all that. But it's important to remember that a lot of these baits are designed to be interchangeable with the blades, split rings, and all kinds of hardware. And it's okay to actually experiment and try different things, because you're actually still within, you know, you're still within that, it still is practical. And a lot of times you're gonna find that fishing a spinnerbait without the skirt, with just the skirt and no trailer at all, can be a lot more effective than with the trailer. Sometimes having the trailer can be more effective than not having it. Sometimes they want to grub. Sometimes they want a swim bait. Sometimes they want a split tail by Zoom. It's really basically whatever the fish want. So I really I can't really talk enough about how effective the spinnerbait is and how many fish you guys, you know, all these things about, you know, the spinnerbait. But as far as modifications go, those are pretty much some of the more important ones. And before we go, we'll talk about one more modification, and that's going and battering your spinnerbait up. Basically, you know, having different spinnerbaits, you know, some with 28 strands with 33, or some with 40, or some with 48, and some with 60. Really seeing, sometimes the flare is too much, sometimes it's too soft, too subtle, sometimes it's too aggressive and too much. You really have to play around. It doesn't seem like it would be important, but the amount of strands in your spinnerbait, or whether it looks, you know, clean or battered, actually makes a difference, you know. And the only other thing I can say is just a side note from me to you guys, sometimes simple beats fancy. So some of these spinnerbaits that cost $15, $20, they're, you know, good, but, you know, get a War Eagle and you'll be happy. Get the ones with the chrome and the bronze gold noses. Don't pay extra for the paint jobs. Like on the head, a lot of times, I'm going to tell you the truth, that is not going to get bit nearly as much as having that chrome or that gold or bronze head on that spinnerbait. This is like, it's for real. But yeah, I hope this helps you guys, you know, as far as spinnerbait fishing goes. You know, it's a really, really fine line between, you know, throwing heavy line and throwing, you know, bait casters, and running with, well, you know, running with the motor and trolling around trying to find wind-blown banks, you know. And generally in the summer, you're trying to fish a lot of those areas where boats are turning up a lot of water, muddy banks, and essentially fish the transition between those muddy shorelines in the summer. And more or less, a lot of times, everybody's just craving and going nuts over the creeks. I mean, when there's water coming in, a lot of people like to fish spinnerbaits right there, because a lot of times, let's say spring, early spring, there's a lot of rain, so the water clarity gets, you know, pretty bad. And some of the clearest water is actually right where it comes in right there. So they fish that transition period right there. They fish the clear water. they fish the transition, and they fish the outside edge of it. All right, guys. I hope this helped. We're talking spinnerbaits, Eastbayanglers out here, California. And subscribe if you haven't, comment, like, and thanks for watching.